Hello, this is Wmpyr. What you're seeing right here is I am doing the Heaven6 technique. It's made up of 6 moves, and you chain it together and you keep going like you see. The video's on loop, so um, I'm going to keep going and going in this video, but that's pretty much the way that it's utilized, or at least that it's practiced. Now, I recently made a video explaining how to use the Heaven6 properly, and the reason why I made that video is because the Heaven6 is a technique that if you're doing the Filipino martial arts of Kia, Kali, Escrima, and or Arnis, pretty much everyone is familiar with the Heaven6, or at least a variation of the Heaven6. So if you do Kali, Escrima, or Arnis, you're going to do this pretty much. So it's such a common technique. I thought it's very important to cover this, right? Because everybody does it. That's number one. Number two is I also kind of noticed that I feel like most people, when they're sparring, when they're put in a sparring situation, right, and they got to use this, or they feel like they have to use it, and yeah, I think that's what happens. People feel like they need to use the Heaven6 because, it's one of those techniques that it's kind of tricky to learn at first when you're a beginner. Some people pick it up right away, but other people can have trouble with it. So it's like the first big hill that you have to go over, the first big hump. And I guess because of it, and you do spend quite a bit of time doing it, I think people feel like obligated to use the technique, because if not, it's like a waste. So they're like, okay, I've spent some time doing the Heaven6, I know how to do it. So then sparring comes around, and it's like, all right, I gotta put it in here. So they force it in, and I believe that is like, that's not a very good way to use the tool. It's not a very good way to utilize the Heaven6. The idea of forcing the technique into a sparring situation already, I think, is problematic, that you're forcing it in there because you feel like you have to do it, like you're obligated to use it. And that already those aren't good thoughts. When it comes to combat, you want to do what's effective, what's efficient. And those kinds of thoughts have nothing to do with that. So that's why I feel like I need to talk about this. I've seen it over and over again, and believe me, I was one of these people, like in a sparring situation, the opponent is over there, I'm over here, and it's, we start off kind of like, let's say, in a little bit further than medium range, so let's say long range, and it's like, ready, go. Here I am trying to do the Heaven6, so I start doing the Heaven6, and it's like, there's really no point in doing that, other than like you're showing off that, hey, I know the Heaven6, but most people that do Kia know it. So what is the point in showing off? If you're going up against someone who does a different style, or they're using a different weapon, you're showing off, saying, hey, look, I am a Filipino martial arts guy. And that kind of intimidation or distraction tactic probably only works on very, very weak opponents. People that are not serious on hurting you. So once again, I feel like it's pointless. So what is the proper way to use the Heaven6? And I've already covered it in the video. I said to you guys that 2 main usages. Number one is as a blender, And then number 2 is, for lack of a better word, kind of like a flail, where you use it defensively so that the person cannot come in. Either way, both of these would be high speed. And I think it's a no-brainer that if you do the Heaven6 high speed, and in this video right here, I am not going high speed. If I went as fast as I can, I will tire myself out within seconds. Therefore, it doesn't make sense to be doing that when my opponent is far away, unless I have a specific tactic, a specific purpose other than intimidation or other than just a distraction. Those 2 reasons to me are very weak. And I said if you're going to use it defensively, I could use this so that it makes it difficult for them to come in. Like they want to come in and they want to grab a hold of me, or they want to get in very close and cause a lot of damage to me with a weapon or without a weapon. And me doing the Heaven6 with or without a weapon, if I go really, really fast, that could discourage them from coming in. When do I do it? I do it right when they're about to come in. And I want to do it right when they're about to, and not way before, because I will tire myself out. That makes sense, right? And so in the Philippines, they say, do not stick your hand in the blender, which means if the other person's doing the blender, then they're going to tire themselves out. So just let them do that, right? Don't go in. It makes sense, but this person's trying to get close to me. So I would do this blender type motion, because that's what the Heaven6 is, and make it difficult for them to come in. It makes sense. But once again, that means right as they're coming in, or they have to be showing signs that they are trying to come in. If they're not, and I'm doing the Heaven6, it's pointless. It is meaningless. You might as well be doing cartwheels or a backflip. You're showing off. It's a show-off move, and that's it. You're wasting energy. So, yeah, I just wanted to make that very clear. I'm not into show-off moves. I know some people do Filipino martial arts, and they do moves for, they're like, yeah, this is not a practical move, but it's showy and it's pretty cool, so I'm going to practice it. For me, I would never do that. I don't want to do that. And if I'm practicing a move, maybe I don't understand the usage of the tool. I don't understand the tactical or strategic usage. If so, then at least it's something that I will be starting to think about and trying to figure out. But for the moment, I'm just learning the body mechanics, right? And that alone can be beneficial. But in my brain, I tell myself that there is nothing useless. There is nothing that's just for show, unless I tell myself that's what I'm doing. I'm just learning this for show, which I never ever do. So if you are learning Filipino martial arts, please, I recommend get that out of your mindset. Don't ever learn something for show, okay? Always understand that even if you don't know it, or even if your teacher doesn't know it, nothing is for show. And there is going to be a practical use behind it. If you can't figure it out, then that's fine. Maybe that technique's not for you. Okay? So anyway, that's another thing I want to say. And the other one is the first thing that I said to you guys, which is the blender. The blender is... Offensively, the blender is a charging in technique. So then I would use the Heaven6 if I'm going to charge in. So if I know that I want to charge in, or if I see an opening on the opponent and I'm going to charge in, I go, this is my chance. I need to charge in, so I'm going to do it. Then I'm going to charge in and I'm going to overwhelm the opponent and run them over using the Heaven6. That's what I'm doing here. Okay. If I have no intention of charging in, once again, it is pointless to just be doing the Heaven6 in long range. So the opponent's over there, I'm over here, I'm not using it offensively, I'm not using the blender offensively, and I'm not using the blender defensively, and that is a waste of time, and that is what I see a lot of times in sparring. So I was just trying to help you guys make your Heaven6 more purposeful. So that is the point of this video, to help explain that. And once again, in a previous video, I explained that, but hopefully in this one, I was much more thorough. Because once again, across the board, when I see people doing the Heaven6 in sparring, it just looks like to me, and I'm pretty sure this is their mindset, is they feel obligated to use it. They feel like they need to start going into this double arm weaving motion, and they do this figure eight for really no reason at all. They might think, hey, I'm in motion, so this will be good for me to go into something. But really, if that's what I wanted to do, I wouldn't even do that. I would just do simpler movements so that I can launch into a different move. Yes, it can be used as what I called a generator. Yes, you could use the Heaven6 as a generator, but I explained many years ago that the generator concept is that I'm doing the Heaven6 and I'm going to keep you occupied with that. So in other words, I am actually attacking you using the Heaven6. If I'm far away from you and I'm just doing the Heaven6, it's, once again, I feel like it's really, really pointless. But if I'm using the Heaven6 and I'm trying to come in and trying to give attacks to you, from there, the Heaven6 is like, I've put in so much repetitions into it that it's like breathing for me. So while you're occupied with the Heaven6, I can be setting up a different technique. So it'd be like a boxer throwing the jab. They're throwing the jab repeatedly, but they're really setting you up for something else. So behind that jab, they're pumping out that jab, but underneath that jab, their brain is thinking of something else. So that is the same way that I could use the Heaven6, but you have to make the threat real. Okay. So the other thing I need to probably talk about is the way that it's traditionally taught. The Heaven6 is like it's a counter technique, right? The opponent attacks, and number one is like a parry. It's a counter, but remember there's 6 movements here. So the first one's a parry, the second one can be on the hand, and that's your first counter. The second one to the hand can be a check. It's more like a check. And then number 3 might be the actual counter, but it's all very versatile. You could even counter with number 1, but usually, let's say number 1's the parry, number 2's the check, number 3 is the counter, and then 4, 5, 6 is offensive. All right. So that is like the typical formula, but we learned that. Everybody learns that does Kia. So then it's like you're trying to apply that in sparring, but the wrong thing that people are doing is that they're just doing the Heaven6 the whole time. And there's 2 types of Heaven6. One is kind of like what I'm doing here, where those are attacks. The other is where it's a lot more fluid, a figure 8 circular motion, and that can be called redonda. So when you're doing redonda because you feel like this is what I'm doing here is not fast enough, and you're trying to do it against an attack, it just doesn't work that way. Because it's almost like what you're trying to do is a setup technique. So if you have a setup technique, let's say you have a jab that you throw to their face, And then what you really want to do is land the body shot, right? Are you going to be going jab, body shot, jab, body shot, jab, body shot? Are you going to repeatedly do that? No. No, because they're going to figure, they go, that's what they want to do. So they'll avoid both, right? So what you want to do is you want to throw that jab repeatedly and get them used to that jab. And when they don't expect it, boom, that's when the body shot goes. But if you're doing the Heaven6 the whole time, you're giving away your setup. So it doesn't make sense. So you got to save your setup is what I'm saying. So once again, I just see a lot of people that know how to do the motion of the Heaven6, but I guess they feel pressure to use it in sparring. They don't know how to use it in sparring, so they're just immediately starting off with it, or they're forcing it in there. And that is not the way to go, is my message. And in the previous video, I said that the opponent that fights like a spear, so whether they have sticks or an actual spear, or you're both empty-handed, if they have a good spear technique, whether it's with empty-handed wise, it would be like a punch, or maybe it's a spear hand, or it could be a finger jab to the eyes. The opponent that has a good spear move is going to pick you apart if you're doing Heaven6. So that's why you can't just be doing Heaven6 most of the time or the whole time. So save the Heaven6 is what I'm saying. Save it, do it at the right time. And hopefully in this video I made it clear when the right times are, which is either a blender that is offensive, which means you're going to charge in like a battering ram, so you better be charging in with it. And number two is you're using it when they're trying to come in on you. When they're trying to charge in, you're using it as a countermeasure. So those are the two major times to be using the Heaven6. Heaven6 is versatile. I'll be the first to admit that. So there are usages. So if you find yourself right now using it out of just pressure because you don't know how to use it, figure it out. You don't have to listen to me. Figure out different ways from what I just said. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the main idea is don't just use it in sparring at long range feeling like you got to. Because doing it without understanding purpose, doing it just to do it, that to me is not a good idea. Okay, so that's it for now. Thank you for viewing and take care, folks.